Welcome to the Humans of Hospitality podcast. I know so many of you listening to this show love your local bar, your local restaurant, maybe your local hotel, and have so many fond memories of time in hospitality businesses. This is the podcast where we get to chat to the human beings behind the scenes of that industry. Maybe the chefs or the bakers or the coffee roasters or the gin distillers or the craft brewers or the entrepreneurs, but all doing an amazing job of making sure that hospitality stays interesting and the big, dull, formulaic brands do not take over our high street. Please enjoy the show. In this week's episode, I am chatting to Jethro Tennant from the Dorset Sea Salt Company. Now, on a massive rock that juts out into the English Channel down on the south coast, there is a young man who cleverly mimics the salt lakes of the Camargue. So okay, what Jethro has created in the last 2 years is actually a mini version of these awesome salt plains, carefully extracting the sea salt from the pristine water around Dorset's Chesil beach and drying it in artificial heat, which is powered by solar, wind and biomass energy. And in just 24 months, demand for his product, Dorset Sea Salt, is growing steadily, from discerning delicatessens, farm shops and restaurants to big names like Selfridges. Not bad for a startup that began life with Jethro heaving jerry cans of seawater from the beach to his parents' house and experimenting with the evaporation process on his mum's hob for hours and hours. Do not mention the gas bill. Perhaps the most intriguing thing is what triggered Jethro's fascination for sea salt in the first place. I doubt if you'll guess, you'll just have to listen to this week's conversation to find out. Enjoy. Okay, Jethro, thank you so much for sparing the time to be on the podcast. As has become my kind of opening question, because I get to travel around the country meeting people, could you just explain where on planet Earth are we, please?
We are on the wonderful Isle of Portland, on the south coast of England, Dorset. It's quite a unusual place.
It is, isn't it? It's like, so it's fundamentally what a big rock that juts out into the ocean. It's beautiful. We are literally nigh on 360 degrees ocean all the way around us, aren't we? But I'm guessing it's not on the way anywhere, is it? You have to specifically come here.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have a purpose to come here, a reason to come here.
Yeah.
Because it's not exactly en route,
but it is beautiful.
It is. It's surrounded by kind of natural beauty everywhere, and the sea and the stunning kind of coastline.
Yeah. So, and how long have you been here?
As a business, we've been here for 2 years. I've lived here for about 3 or 4 years.
Nice. And it's although it's autumn, it's like 20 odd degrees outside. It's gloriously sunny, and you, from your side of the table, you can actually see the ocean in the background, can't you? So,
exactly.
Yeah. Very nice. But thank you for sparing the time. I imagine if your business is fundamentally salt from the ocean, then there can't be too many better places, although we'll come into that, maybe hotter. But just to start with, I want to come to the detail of what you actually do, but just as a starting point, why salt? What on earth got you into this? What was the trigger to get you into
it? It's an unusual one. I mean, I never envisaged getting into the food industry or the salt industry, to be specific. A couple of years ago, maybe about 3.5 years ago, I graduated from uni.
What did you study?
I was studying education and politics, so it's nothing business related or food related or scientific in terms of chemistry. And I graduated with the aim of wanting to go into teaching. I was a teaching assistant for a while, and I worked in pubs and.
Is this primary education or secondary?
Primary,
wow,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I was a teaching assistant at a special needs school.
Wow. Is it near here? Or?
Yeah, it was just actually in Weymouth, but
right.
That was amazing. I really loved it there. But I really struggled picking up, the full-time graduate work, grown-up jobs,
right.
and career jobs. So I was sort of working on building sites, doing just odds and sods, just trying to build up my CV and trying to get on my way to being an adult. So I really
that never happens. I don't think we're not really ever adults. Once you've got kids, you have to pretend to be an adult, but up until that point, it's not necessary.
So I think one day I was kind of bored and procrastinating from applying for jobs and looking for things to do. And I actually stumbled across an article that was about sea salt production on Portland.
What on earth were you reading?
Well, I was just looking up on local history.
Okay. Sounds like one of those "Have I got news for you" kind of magazines where I was reading Sea Salt Weekly, and
I was looking for things to do because I was that bored, and I ended up reading about local history around Portland and Dorset, and I stumbled across an article that was about sea salt production on Portland and how they used to produce it back in the Roman and Saxon times on the east side of Portland, a place called the East Weirs.
right.
And in high tide, the sea would flood into these man-made salt pans, these huge vats that were man-made by the Romans. And it would flood, and then in low tide, the tide would go back out and leave these pools of water, which would evaporate in the very few hot days that we'd have here. And then so it'd leave a salty crust on the rocks, which they used to go and scrape off and use all sorts of different reasons as preservatives for their foods and meats that they used to travel around with. But also, there was a point in time the Romans were paid in salt, so sailors and soldiers were paid in salt. That's where it was a currency, it was a hugely valued commodity back in the day. That's where words like salary comes from, salarium, which is it's all a derivative of that relationship people had with sea salt back then. So I don't know, I just found it. I found it quite interesting, and that how something so simple could be produced, and why it's not being produced anymore, and why it didn't have the significance that it used to have. I just thought it was a bit weird, really, and so I started doing it as a bit of as an odd. Weird hobby.
So most people would have read that article, moved on, and I don't know, looked at a picture of a cat or whatever comes after that.
Watching cat videos.
Yeah. But you literally thought, I'm going to have a go at that. I'm going to try and make some salt, because the salt pans that were there. Is there any sign of those? They still there?
There's relics there. Yeah, so there's still kind of remnants of a bygone kind of industry.
Right.
But yeah, no, you're right. Most people would have probably just clicked onto the next subject heading or the next page, or
Yeah, but you thought I might have
me being a bit weird. I kind of thought that I'm bored to tears. It'll get me out of the house. I'll go for a walk and collect some seawater, and I can take the dog with me and things. And so I started collecting buckets of seawater and taking them back to my parents' house. And
did you deliberately decide not to kind of take the Roman approach and I don't know, recarve out the old salt pans and stuff like that? Did you do a bit of research that went, okay, now you can do this in your kitchen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I did a lot of research in terms of how to make salt. I think at the time it was the middle of winter and it was sort of pouring down in rain, so it wasn't gonna work.
The Romans didn't have, I suppose, a national gas supply or whatever.
And I guess that back in the day, that's why it was so valued here, is because you couldn't even call it seasonal, because it was sort of only maybe like 2 or 3 weeks a year, so it was so rare.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why it was so important to them back then and so valued. So I started sort of boiling seawater down at my parents' house. And
just
experimenting.
You go for a walk with the dog, you rock up with a couple of buckets of seawater. Did your parents kind of go,
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Were they worried about you?
Well, yeah, they were. I remember telling a couple of my mates what I was up to,
right,
or what I'd been up to, and they were just sort of like, have you lost the plot? And
did you have a sort of reputation for quirky eccentricity at this point, or was this the first sign?
You'll have to ask them, maybe. But they kept making references to like Breaking Bad, and the guy, what's his name, Walter or whatever.
Yeah, they thought you were going to do something hardcore with it, rather than just sprinkle it on your chips.
It looks a little bit suspicious, So I started doing that and trying to, experiment and produce the best kind of textured salt I possibly could.
At the time, just for a hobby, a bit of interest.
As a hobby, yeah, just using it at home in the kitchen, and I give the odd sort of little pouch. It was in pouches at the time to my friends.
Was it relatively easy, and was the product then any good?
Well, essentially,
was it average?
No, it was rubbish when I first started. It was terrible. It was sort of like scorched, sandy, kind of sludgy white substance, which is it's still salt technically. So, but no, it was no good. But essentially, all it is evaporating seawater, so that in theory, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
But there are different variables, as I discovered later down the line, to make a nicely textured flake salt.
We'll come into I suppose how you actually do it. But how long did you spend then in, kind of refining this process and experimenting before you went, oh, I might actually do this commercially instead of teaching?
Well, I remember it. I was trying to fine tune the product for it must have been about 9 months, just as a hobby, and trying to get the final product right.
Thinking you might be able to sell it at the end, or
just
thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. The more I was doing it, the more I was thinking and researching that there's perhaps a gap in the market for a Dorset-based sea salt company. And so the more I was doing it, the more I realised that, and that was just kind of a culmination over time. And eventually I got there after lots of trial and error. And
was that a frustrating process where you think, because you're right, you start off, although I've not spent a massive amount of time thinking how to extract salt from seawater, which is why I love having conversations with people who take just a tiny little seed of an idea and then take it to an extreme level. And that's kind of the point of this podcast, is that there's a lot of geeks out there who take something which we all then benefit from because we end up with this amazing product. Yeah. But were there some times when you thought, okay, this is shouldn't be very hard. There's salt in this water. Get rid of the water. The salt's left. But you thought, man, this is impossible to solve this. I should just go back to hanging out in a primary school. Or was it, because it's a fair amount of time, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. There was times during that phase where it was frustrating, but at the same time, it was. It was exciting, and I liked the challenge, and I could see something at the end of it. So, I don't know, I just felt really motivated at that point. It was really exciting, and I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it as a kind of lifestyle kind of thing, being able to create stuff from the sea and where you live.
And that history, had you any good at history when you were studying? Was that?
No, I was never very good at school.
Right.
But traditional education wasn't my forte or anything. I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that's what we need, and that's again why I love this industry, because there's so many people in hospitality who don't want to spend their life sat behind a desk or in a classroom and don't have academia, but they're really good with their hands and their brains and testing stuff. Although I don't know, you've done chemistry at school as well, presumably. Were you any better in those lessons? Or?
No, not really. I'm just getting told off for playing around with a Bunsen burner too much. But
we need to remember that this kind of stuff should be fun, shouldn't it? I'm sure if they said, right, get down to the ocean and grab some buckets,
absolutely,
and then we'll evaporate it.
Exactly.
So at some point in this process, then there's this little seed where you're going, look, there might be a business opportunity here, at least a hobby business to do something with what you're learning. But you didn't have any experience of running a business at this point. Is there any history of kind of like entrepreneurialism or self-employed in your family? Or?
Well, my parents are self-employed, both my parents.
That's useful, presumably, because at least you can see that you don't have to just go and get a
exactly. And I've got my older brother's self-employed and my sister too. So actually, looking back, come from perhaps quite an entrepreneurial family, and that was always kind of instilled in me from an early age that you can, there's always different ways to skin a cat. Which is good.
And you ended up going then, so from to actually turn it into a business, you ended up going to the Prince's Trust, is that right?
Yeah.
Can you just explain a little bit about how that came about once you'd extracted some salt?
Yeah. So
what was the story for
after I found the secret recipe, I found out how to make the perfect kind of salt. I was just frantically looking for help with starting a business, whether that's through mentorship or grants or different schemes. Because you're quite right. I mean, I didn't know, although I come from my parents are entrepreneurial, but I didn't really know where to start with it. I didn't study that kind of thing, and I wasn't really interested in that. So I didn't know where to start. So I approached the Prince's Trust because I found them online just from searching. They're amazing. If anybody doesn't know about the Prince's Trust, they're a charity that help young people get into work. They have lots of different initiatives, whether that's from hosting employability workshops for disadvantaged young people, or enrolling onto their enterprise scheme, which is what I did, or doing, they just provide a whole host of different experiences for people to boost their CVs and get into employment. But it's a fantastic charity. So I worked with them on their enterprise
Right. Is that like a Dragon's Den kind of? You've
Yeah,
got a picture idea kind of thing.
Yeah,
How does it work?
Yeah, it's like a real pleasant Dragon's Den. Yeah, so a lot less stressful. Okay. So you enrol on the course. It's a 3-day course initially, and they show you what you're letting yourself in for, which is great. And I found it all really, really exciting and motivating. And then they assign you a business mentor. I volunteer to the Prince's Trust that has worked in business all their life, and they give back to the trust. So they assign you a mentor to help create a watertight business plan, do all your market research, look at suppliers, all of that kind of jazz. You target market. And then once you've got this business plan, I mean, it took me about another 12 months with my business mentor to finalise this business plan and take it.
Before you actually started producing
it? Before we started producing it commercially as a business.
Okay.
And taking it to retailers and restaurants. And
was that mentorship helpful? Because often you hear that the mentorship is actually more useful than the money, because they also put some money in it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They're 100% right. They gave us a low interest loan of a few £1,000. As a result of going to pitch it. So you take your business plan, you go and pitch it to a panel, to the friendly Dragon's Den, and they ask questions, they try and pick it apart, but then you come back and you show that you've done your homework. And then they give you the low interest loan, a few £1,000 to get yourself off the business off the ground. So that might be like the first month's rent on the office or the factory, could be for a website or the first packaging run. So that was great, but you're right. The most important and most valuable element of working with the Prince's Trust and their scheme was the mentorship and experience and expertise, and having someone there as a sounding board for any
key nuggets that you got from that person that you remember and think, if I hadn't been told that, or if I hadn't had that kind of relationship, I might not be sat here now. Or?
Yeah, well, I think my mentor particularly was a very sort of calming. He had a very calming kind of attitude towards the world. He was very laid back and he's very organised, whereas I'm kind of like to get on 100 mile an hour and don't really think about things, just do it. So I think as a general theme, that was a really good impression that he had on me. But then if I was thinking more specifically to a specific kind of element of the business, maybe the numbers, which is the backbone of any business. But I mean, that was a bit of a baptism of fire at the start. I mean, I never looked at a profit and loss account before, or a cash flow forecast, or anything like that before. So that was a massive thing that helped me to
we don't seem to go through that enough in education, do we?
No.
We don't seem to do anything on mortgages and current, and whether it's changed now, I don't know. Yeah, P&L accounts, which fundamentally are useful for life, really, because a P&L account's just a budget at the end of the day.
Exactly,
I think everyone would benefit. I worry there's some sort of conspiracy that tries to permanently keep us overdrawn and in debt and in the kind of capitalist game, and they're like, no, don't tell too many people how a budget works, otherwise we'll all get out of it. So during that year then when you were building it, was that literally kind of before you went commercial, you were coming up with a brand, building a website, all that kind of stuff, or was it more just how we actually go into fine premises and start making it?
So that was everything really. It was fine-tuning the product still. I was trying to finish that off.
Still in the kitchen?
Yeah, in the kitchen, kitchen trials, and then doing the packaging, the logo, the brand, what we, establishing the brand values, what we wanted it to portray, and, really why we're doing it is an important basis to start from.
Did you work with an agency or anything on that? Because your brand's really nice. It's nice and clean and fresh. The photography's lovely.
Yeah,
were you working with someone? Yeah,
we worked later down the line, about a year in, we won something called the Seed Fund, which is a competition for...
I see a sticker on your wall behind it, actually. So.
I'm still milking it.
Yeah, the Seed Fund winner, 2018.
Yeah. So they helped us a lot with the brand. That was a reward. The prize was a budget to spend with these guys. Which
so who are they?
Called the Collaborators. And the Seed Fund is a competition that's initiated by the Guild of Fine Food and a marketing and branding company called the Collaborators, which are food industry specialists. So we ended up somehow fluking that and. Sneaking that away.
What based on what? What were they looking for?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think it was the right time for our product, and I guess they liked it. They thought that it was a nice offering, and the brand was really good, and it had legs. So they helped us a lot with the brand, which we're very, very fortunate to. Again, it's things like that where people in privileged positions are looking to give back and help people that are starting out. It's another example of how that's really aided the Dorset Sea Salt company. So very fortunate, very lucky,
Yeah, that comes up a lot actually. I think particularly in this sector, maybe compared to others. But bearing in mind that food and drink is such a competitive industry, but I think you find most people in the hospitality and food and drink, it's the kind of industry where we're all about looking after people.
Exactly,
if people who make food almost want to see that kind of instant gratification of somebody enjoying their product, and therefore you almost inevitably end up kind of looking after people. So
exactly.
Constantly comes up how helpful.
I remember when the market research phase, I was going around talking to potential retailers at local farm shops and delis, and then local chefs and restaurants, and going in thinking this must be so annoying for them to have me constantly, on the end of the phone or sending them emails or knocking on the door and asking stupid questions and things. But actually, they were amazing. They're really, and they're still friends that I've got now and contacts that I've got now. So on the whole, people in the food and hospitality industry are, really, really helpful and kind, and just looking to help people out, which is great.
It's full of human beings. I think
it is real people.
The humans of hospitality from this chat kind of perspective is that there's generally some good eggs behind it.
Yeah.
So you spend 12 months planning it, and then literally you get to a point where you go, right, I'm gonna launch it. And is this by then? Have you got premises to do this commercially, or do you launch from the kitchen? Yeah,
we launched in a small premises. I mean, we're still in a small premises, but we were in a smaller one. On an extremely small scale, and we just started selling to farm shops and delis and a few selected restaurants. These are people that I've met during the kind of market research phase and built up a rapport with. So we finally got over the line with launching a product, which was really exciting. And I remember getting our first stockist, which was like mind blowing for me, and then just actually seeing it on the shelf was incredible. So I always remember that moment of seeing that. It was it's pretty cool.
Have you ever gone anywhere and bought it in incognito?
No, I haven't.
Have you not? I hear so many people who it's normally, to be fair, in supermarkets we've had it. I'm not saying specifically it was Jimmy's iced coffee, but also there's tomato juice people, and they're kind of like, man, I need to make this look popular. So you go in and just kind of buy it all up. So it's quite a common technique. If you've ever got anybody thinking of pulling your product, you just need to either go in yourself or send in a few people and start buying.
I'm sure many of my friends have done that just out of
just to help you out. So those initial sales were literally then just done word of mouth. You rocking up, going in and saying, hey, buy this, it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a bit on social media to lead up to the brand, to the launch.
So that sort of gets me into product a little bit. So I think to so many people, kind of salt. A lot of people just have a bit of table salt in their in their kitchen and shake it on their chips. Some people might have moved on to Maldon's or Cornish and the competition a little bit in chef's world. But can you just explain a little bit that not all salt is salt? Basically, it's different. Just tell me about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
why?
First and foremost, sea salt as a product, as an ingredient is. Wherever you get it from, it's a game changer in terms of flavour. So it really is a must in a commercial kitchen or at home in your cupboard or in the pantry or whatever. But there's absolutely a different. I mean, naively, I'd be the same kind of person that would think salt is salt. I used to think that, but it's not true. There's two major variables. It's kind of where you harvest the sea salt from. So that's the geographic location. So the mineral profile of the waters where you harvest from will add or detract to the final flavour, because they all have a different mineral profile around the world or the UK. And then the second variable is manufacturing techniques. So that's concentrations of brine, seawater, temperatures, humidities, timings will either preserve, add or detract again from the mineral composition. And those minerals will contribute to the flavour. So if you're killing off, magnesium in sea salt, it might be a bit less bitter, because magnesium tastes quite bitter. So there's those two kind of major factors that will kind of differentiate.
So can you tell, I mean, is it a little bit like, I don't know, coffee beans or grapes or wines, I suppose? Certain people can tell certain profiles. I guess you hear about it less with salt because very rarely is it something that you consume on its own, I guess. It's always an ingredient in something. But is it possible to kind of taste salt and actually notice some differences then in flavours?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the obvious one is texture. So you get sea salt comes in many different textures. It can be flake, it could be rock, it could be a fleur de sel, which is a real fine, delicate flake, or a flour of the salt. It's a real fine, delicate flake. But the flavour, yeah, definitely. So some might be a bit more minerally, if that's a word, or some might be stronger. So I'd say that our sea salt is a bit stronger than others on the market. Others might be a bit more balanced. So definitely there's it sounds strange talking about it, and I risk sounding extremely pretentious, but it is true.
It's true, and it's good, and it's why I love people who go off and get geeky about their one thing. So I mentioned to you before we started recording this, but I always remember chatting to William Curley about chocolate and hearing him kind of like us. He's one of the best patissier chocolatiers in the country, and actually you've got Chicoco as well, not too far from
that's
here.
right.
Swanage, and Claire from there was the same. But their level of obsession and knowledge and stuff on just the cocoa bean and where it comes from and how it's grown and how it's treated. And we're so lucky as consumers in the modern world that we just get to rock up and order a hot chocolate or a little sweet or something like that, and then it's the same in the kitchen. It's kind of like, grab half a teaspoon of sea salt and chuck it in your dish, and you don't think about actually what goes on behind the scenes to make that. And we're gonna come into the technicalities of making it. So I'm always just super grateful when I meet people like you, because I haven't got time to go off and spend 3 or 4 years learning about the history of salt and harvesting it and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that somebody does, and then we're in that privileged position where we get to consume it so easily and just rock up in a shop and just buy a jar, I think is phenomenal. So but in the kind of the big world of salt, and I suppose, we used to have probably really good salt. And then I guess we've probably, certainly in the UK, where we didn't really have a particularly foodie reputation, I think we probably just went through a number of years where we were all using some sort of crappy mass-produced table salt. What's the difference in where does that come from? And does that have additives and stuff that's kind of put in it in a different way to kind of sea salt? Just explain the kind of, if yours is, say, one of the creme de la creme kind of salts that you can get, what's at the other end of the market, so the consumer understands it?
So the other end would be like a table salt, which would be laden with chemicals. And
where does that come from generally?
It's normally mined and it's milled.
Right.
So that in that table salt, it won't be unrefined. It won't be natural. It'll have sort of anti-caking agents in it.
So why is that? Why do they put stuff in it?
Well, I'm not sure. I guess it's cheaper to produce that way in terms of for the mass market, but I'm not too sure why they have to ruin a perfectly natural product.
Right.
I don't know why.
But that would be the norm. You go into the shop and you just buy your bulk stand. Somebody who hasn't listened to this yet and just thought salt was salt, goes in and buys it. So it will generally be mine. Is it tend to be British, or is there a particularly big producer?
No, I mean
globally.
Classically, it's you get the sort of the hotter countries like France, Spain, Portugal, Israel, are massive salt producers because they've got the climate to do that naturally. So it's a cheaper product over there. I'm not knocking the product, because some of the sea salts that come out of those places are amazing. But it's just because of the way they produce it, it's a lot cheaper to produce. Whereas over here we have to use artificial energy to produce it. Hence overheads are higher than the product.
But even though, so sea salt is a step up from your bulk standard salt tends to be mined from the ground rather than from the ocean.
Yeah, definitely.
Just exists in the rock again. Excuse my naivety, but I've not read the same
rock,
stuff.
In the ground and then rock.
Okay, and then the next step up from that might be, in essence, mass-produced sea salt, and then you end up in the more boutique-y sea salts like you. Is that that's the salt
definitely
journey? Okay. Going back again historically. Did there used to be, in the same way that there was a coffee roaster in every town once upon a time, and there was a gin distiller in every town and stuff like that, and then we ended up with just having global salt, and now we've got a couple of others, Cornish yew. Historically, was this something that was done all around the coast of Britain, or were there particularly niche kind of places that did it?
Well, it used to go on all across UK. I know for a fact in Dorset, it's salt pans here. There's Poole. There's an old sultan's house there where they used to produce salt. Lymington has a massive salt history from the marshes there. Spaces all over the UK that have a rich...
And have most of those gone?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, there's only a handful of British sea salt producers. So, yeah.
And why do you think it disappeared?
Well, industrialisation, cheaper imports, ease of manufacturing. It's quite a hard product to manufacture in the UK because of the climate in a cheap way that suits the market at the time. So,
do you know how long ago we lost it as a product when we sort of switched off?
I don't know.
It's just interesting because it seems to be the same in so many different products. I was chatting to Michael Stokes about stone ground kind of flour, and the fact that we used to have, again, something I can't remember. I'd have to go back. There's a podcast about it, but maybe there were 600 kind of flour mills across the country, and now there's something like 18. We lost that ability to actually manufacture, but how much of a better product it was, because when you stone grind the grain, you keep the embryo from the wheat in the flour, and that's where all the nutrients are, and unfortunately it goes rancid quicker, so it only lasts kind of 6 weeks instead of 6 years. And it kind of feels the same with salt. It's kind of like if you mass produce it, mine it from the ground, you end up fill it with some agents, and it's a product that lasts forever. So we seem to have gone through this period of losing a certain amount of our culinary kind of history, and it's quite exciting that now it's coming back again, but it's coming back in such a tiny niche way. Hopefully that's good for you. But when you looked at it and you were doing the research side of it, and you saw, like I say, a few of the competitors in the UK, did you think, this is a crowded market? It's not like you ever go into the supermarket and they go, oh no, we've run out of salt. I'm really sorry, it's a real shortage. It's kind of like, there's loads, isn't there? What made you believe that you could step into a market and create a brand?
Yeah, there's lots of other larger British sea salt companies out there, fantastic companies, businesses, not knocking their product whatsoever. They've done extremely well, and they've stood the test of time, and they've done really well with it. So you're right, it was a crowded market. A couple of the bigger ones kind of dominate the market at the moment. I just thought that it really affected me that why it died out on Portland and in Dorset, because Dorset is a county, and the lifestyle people associate with Dorset as a brand is probably the best in the UK, I think. And it's to have, if you want to produce a pure, 100% pure, clean, natural product, where better to produce it than the Jurassic Coast, Chesil Beach? So it was a no-brainer for me. I'm not too concerned about what the competition are doing. That was not really about that. It's kind of just focusing on the brilliance of what we do, and concentrating on that. Obviously, you have to keep an eye on what other people are doing in the market and all the boring stuff. But
so people who are buying it then, apart from flavour, do you think that provenance, the fact it's a Dorset product, that Dorset brand is strong, and that's why people purchase it well as the quality? Yeah,
definitely. So that's like a secondary motive behind buying it, is because of the Jurassic Coast, Chesil Beach, Dorset. You look at other Dorset brands that have exported beyond the Dorset and south, like Dorset cereal, Dorset tea. Absolutely, it's just the kind of lifestyle people associate with Dorset, and the opinions people have of it. It's a trusted and British kind of beacon, really.
Yeah. We'll have lots of messages from the Cornish. Probably
Nothing against Cornish. I love Cornwall. It's great.
We're lucky. It's a good neighbour, and let's not forget Devon squeezed in between the middle. But let's not forget. But do you export out of Dorset as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we sell. We started off supplying different outlets in Dorset and neighbouring counties, and we do bits and bobs in London and up north. We do a little bit of export, which is good. We're just starting to do a bit of that now. So yeah, the plan was never to just create a Dorset brand for Dorset people. It was a Dorset brand for everyone. Yeah. A Dorset product for everyone. So that's what we aim to do.
And you're mainly are you in any of the supermarkets, or was this more through delis?
Well, it's a funny product. It can kind of sit across. It's a high end. Don't get me wrong. It's a premium retail offering, but it can still be a premium retail offering in different outlets. So we've just started. Predominantly, 90% of the business is farm shops, delis, high-end retail, high-end restaurants, gourmet food manufacturers. But we just started to do a little bit of work with Morrison's on their regional suppliers and a local supplier scheme, which I think is really good for kind of championing local products. And it's not out of place there. It's a premium offering in that outlet. We're not trying to beat anyone on price. We're trying to tell everybody that we're the best sea salt.
I think it'd be bonkers to try and compete on price. I think on a global level, I think, wouldn't you? So, right. So I want to go a little bit, back to where we were about how you actually produce it, I suppose. So, where's it come from? Where's your water from? We're surrounded by water here. I don't need the precise location if it's a secret, but I mean, you're no longer presumably rocking up at the beach with a couple of buckets. You just throw the bucket off the end of Portland Bill and wind it in. How does it now work?
Yeah, so that's how I used to, when we started, I used to collect it. I used to take my little Vauxhall Astra down to Portland Bill, and I'd have about 15 jerry cans in the back, and I'd spend about 2 hours trying to fill them all up. And I cart them back to the car and take them back to our premises and filter them.
Filter them through what?
Filter them through a physical filter, 10 micron filter, and then for a UV filter, which kills bacteria and pathogens.
This is even back in your mum's kitchen days?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that wasn't, not in the mum's kitchen days. Right. I wasn't too
This is once you've worked out why it wasn't as good as it could be.
When we switched to being a commercial, kind of, selling to shops.
Yeah.
There's a certain responsibility that comes with that, making sure that it's safe. I wasn't too concerned about harming myself or my friends. So we take the seawater back, then we put it through the filtration system, and then we heat it in large pans to heat the seawater in large pans to create a concentrated brine, a super salty seawater. And then we get that concentrate, and then we put it into shallow evaporation trays with heat lamps above the evaporation trays so those heat lamps that pretty much emulate the sun, like they would make this.
So it's a micro version. I'm thinking, having flashbacks of travelling around the south of France and seeing these huge salt plains,
exactly.
Like just, as far as the eye can see.
I haven't been, but I'd love to go and check it out.
Yeah, massive
insane.
On this scale, I suppose.
Yeah.
So you're replicating that
on a smaller scale
with a different product because you've got the local kind of sea and minerals and how that's done.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No,
you put those lamps above it.
Yeah, so we put the lamps above it, so they're effectively the sunshine, and then after about 48 hours. The sea salt will start forming on the top layer of the brine in these shallow trays. It will start kind of splitting out on the top of the brine into little flakes. It will start as a little kind of crystal, and it will expand into a flake. And then once it gets too heavy for the surface tension on the top of the brine, it will then precipitate to the bottom of the tray. And then we go and scoop it out very carefully. And then
by hand?
Yeah, by hand, in little scoops. And then we'd rinse it it sounds a bit weird this, but we'd harvest the salt, we'd rinse it in a higher concentrated brine so that the salt wouldn't dissolve again. We'd rinse it in a higher concentrated brine because you get a magnesium build up. So we want to get rid of the magnesium just because it's real bitter. And it's like a chalky white residue, so it doesn't taste very good, and you want a nice glistening, shiny sea salt flakes. We need to get rid of it.
Is this something you found out through trial and error, or is this the power of Google?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both, trial and error. Temperatures. The internet was really good for kind of scientific research. I'm not that way inclined, so that was really handy. So we then rinse it, clean it, and then we drain it on some trays. We let it drain for a couple of days, and then we dry it out in a drying cabinet, a giant kind of dehumidifier. So the whole process would probably, it still takes the same amount of time, about 8 days for a batch. And then at the time we weren't doing any flavoured sea salts. We do a whole range of different flavoured sea salts now for the retail market. We were just doing the natural, the pure salt at the time. So that was what we were doing.
Okay. So you made that sound relatively easy. So each batch that you were doing, how much would that produce in
oh God,
kilos or whatever?
It tested me now, but the general rule of thumb is a pint of seawater is a pinch of salt. So it's quite a lot of seawater you need. I think if one of those jerry cans was 20 kilos, we had 15. We weren't getting a lot of salt, a few kilos, but we were making headways into the market slowly and surely, and getting it on the shelves.
Yeah.
And it was a start.
That's why you're lucky you're surrounded by so much of a natural product, I suppose.
Yeah.
And now there's a pipeline or something. You don't have to pick it up in jerry cans?
No, right? So we pumped the seawater straight out. We actually found a pipeline on Chesil Beach.
What was that doing before then? What was it for?
Actually, sort of aquariums up and down the country use it.
Really?
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
So I never knew about this.
I never knew about this.
Yeah, go on. I'm interested.
Yeah, his mum's trying to like dangling off the edge of the Portland Bill trying to collect seawater. We found this pipe that lots of aquariums use up and down the country for their fish and their sea life.
What, it literally pumps to them, or
they pump it out into big water containers.
Okay.
And
then
lorries.
Take it by lorry.
Take it by lorry back.
Like secret network. It's like Harry Potter-esque now. There's this whole kind of saltwater thing being distributed around the UK.
Cool, actually,
Okay. So you can buy it in big containers and have it delivered to your door, basically.
All these aquariums use it because of the quality of the water. Obviously, the sea life that they've got there is extremely expensive, so they want to use the best waters.
Why is Chesil Beach the best water?
Well, it's kind of grade A, pristine waters. It's a protected coastline, a World Heritage Site. There's lots of different variables to it. But that was it's a sign that the water here is of enormous quality. People like that are risking their whole businesses.
And you didn't know that?
Supply. No.
You just happened to live it. You didn't specifically come.
Yeah,
you just went to Portland because it was the closest water to your house.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and it turns out you were on the doorstep of some of the best water in the country. Yeah. Sometimes these things are just meant to be, aren't they?
I mean, I fluked out.
Yeah, that's really handy. Let alone then that you found somebody who could actually deliver it to you. Does that quality of water then, you mentioned that it's really good, does it vary? Is this a seasonal product or can you get it all year round? Is there times when it's better or worse than others?
Yeah, well, it would be seasonal if we're just using sunlight. Yeah. But it's not seasonal because we're using artificial heat lamps and energy Okay.
And so, when you say you have to filter it, because now that you're not just selling to your friends, what are you filtering out of it?
So the physical filter will get things like sand, grit, plankton, stuff like that out of it, and then so that's an extremely, extremely fine filter. And then there's a biological filter, so that'll kill things like if there's any kind of pathogens or bacteria in there, will go through a UV light and that will just kill any bacteria automatically. Even though it's sort of pristine waters and the best waters in the UK, it's kind of the standard. You just got to do it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So you end up with salt. The water itself just evaporates basically. So there's you don't make it rain in Portland. There's not a little cloud over where you've evaporated it all. So a lot of that then is obviously energy intensive, I'm guessing. And I know the answer in some of these ways, but people's concerns would be hearing that, not using the sun to make salt, is presumably you've got to look at the sustainability of this. So how have you got around it? Is it very energy intensive, and how have you managed that?
Yeah, it is. In the early days, it was in the trial and error, and when we first launched, we were using gas, which obviously was expensive and not very good for the environment.
I'm just thinking of your mum's gas bill when those first 9 months.
Yeah, they weren't very happy.
Yeah,
but no, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, paid them back.
The plan was to always be kind of environmentally aware. I'm that way inclined anyway, without going too far into politics. So we switched to solar panels to create energy and wind as well, to harness the wind energy. And biomass energy, so that's using recycled wood chips to create a heat source. So we've switched over to that now, so it's all kind of renewable, which is great. And it's we hope that we're showing a bit of an example to other people. And we're not on a high horse or anything, but I just think that
I think it's important, isn't it, when you're
definitely.
Fundamentally you're evaporate. If you only get a pinch of salt for whatever it was, a pint of water or something, that's a lot of evaporation. I suppose. It is. Yeah. So the solar panels are on the roof of the building we're in then.
Yeah, solar.
Wind.
So yeah.
And how much of your energy comes from kind of, I don't know, do you know the answers? The wind and the solar element and the biomass? Is it?
Oh God, I'm not. I'm not 100% sure that.
I'm tragically interested in everything.
No. I should really know that.
I think it's cool because I was even just on a house level, but I was reading about Elon Musk and his kind of solar tiles, and then the fact that you can then because obviously we use more power at night than we use in the daytime in a domestic environment, but then you put in one of these big power packs in your garage, so your tiles fundamentally charge the batteries in the daytime, and then you use the power from the batteries at night. And I think all of that trajectory of where we're going. But a lot of people will be turning off if I get any more geeky. I'll do a solar powered one day. That kind of sustainability angle, that's not just a kind of marketing drive then. This is something that you believe in. Why is that? And is it unusual in sort of sea salt production to have that? Is it an issue that the industry uses too much energy in general, would you say?
Yeah, I think the food industry in general uses too much. Never mind just sea salt. We are different in terms of competitors that we do use renewable energy, and everything we do is packaging plastic free for the retail side of the business. So it's all glass and recyclable energy materials, because of the whole plastic thing in the sea level.
And has that always been the
ocean?
case?
Yeah. Well, actually, we started when I was making it with friends and families. That was in little pouches.
Yeah.
But then we've kind of wanted to do the business plan and looking at how we can be responsible on that side of things. But it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. It's slightly more expensive, but it's
because the particular publicity around plastic and the oceans has only really been probably the last 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
I think, but you were doing it anyway just because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And we're kind of the only one that does it in the UK, a sea salt producer.
Yeah.
But no, there's lots more alternatives out there in terms of packaging. There's some great Dorset-based restaurants that are championing a similar attitude. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for us, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think something like 80% of fossil fuels or something are used.
It's incredible. It's nuts,
isn't it? It's just insane. I think, isn't it? People and transport and everything else is our food production.
Yeah, it's mental.
So, I think it's good that we seem to be going through this period of change now. I think just information, to be fair. I don't think we were ever happy it was that way. Just nobody really knew it was that way. But now that we're hearing the impact of what we eat, there seems to be a huge change. I'm certainly noticing it in the restaurant sector.
Yeah,
people are much more conscious about how do we minimise our impact, and that's the challenge is the how. But that's another topic. I'm hoping to go and see Guy from Riverford Organics. I want to go and have a chat with him about how we grow our produce and look over the soil and all that kind of stuff. So that will be another day. So congratulations on getting it to where you've got it through. Can you continue to expand? Have you now got the capacity? You've moved to new premises. Plenty of room to grow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everything in life you have to do it in moderation and be sensible and make sure it's right time and you've got enough staff and. That is the plan. It's never to be a kind of lifestyle business. It's to be a kind of serious contender in the market, and if we can make it available throughout the UK, that's what we plan to do. So it is scalable. It is scalable if we're sensible with it, and we've got a blueprint for X amount of salt. It's just a case of multiplying it. In simple terms.
So have you now employed people to help with that? Who do you now work with?
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a family operation now. It's like can't get away from them. So I work with my brother, my sister, and my dad. He actually helps out as well. So there's 4 of us that are working full time on it.
Do they laugh at the back that you were just the sort of mental guy in the kitchen ruining their work surfaces, and now you've given them all a job? You must be a bit smug now. Look at that.
Yeah, no, it's a good laugh. I never hear the end of it. The weird stories that they tell their friends about how it all came to fruition. And I'm very fortunate. The whole reason I started the business was to create a career for myself and people around Portland that didn't have opportunity, and there wasn't enough opportunities for young people to get on, or just people in general. So if we can, that's a real ambition of mine and for the businesses to create local jobs for local people. And if we can do that, if I can do that with my family along the way, that's amazing. So I'm extremely fortunate for how it's turned out. I'm very lucky. Yeah.
What would they be doing if they weren't working with you? Do you know?
Probably, I don't know, all sorts.
Moved out of Portland?
They might have done.
I imagine it's a problem locally. I imagine a lot of people end up moving.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, lots of my friends who I went to university with from Dorset, not just Portland, but Dorset, moved to London and Manchester and got a job in recruitment or insurance, or I never wanted that. I didn't see. Maybe I was just being a bit stubborn, but I didn't understand why I had to do that just to get on in life. Why couldn't I like living around family and friends? I love living by the sea and the coast. So a lot of people are forced to do that. Which
I think we're very lucky we live in such a beautiful part of the world, aren't we? And we're motivated to stay. It's the same with Jimmy when I was chatting to Jimmy from Ice Coffee. Do you know Jimmy?
I haven't met him personally, no.
He was always obsessed, refused to move to London. He was always, lives in Southbourne, wanted to be able to go and surf and walk along by the ocean every day. So I think maybe we're just more motivated than a lot of people to try and create jobs if there aren't jobs, because we don't want to leave. So you mentioned then that the next stage you've got potential growth, but you've also started to develop lots of different flavours. Is that just was that something you always wanted to do, or was that chefs kind of, I don't know, demanding it, or the consumer demanding it?
Yeah, it's a bit of both really. That's probably the most enjoyable part of the job, and what I do is talking. I mean, admittedly, I'm not a chef. Never have been. I don't think I ever will. I try.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
That's a crazy
I'm
industry.
I'm not amazing.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, I'm good friends with quite a lot of decent chefs. So, I talk to them about flavors and pairings and different flavored salts and what's working and what's not. So we do a lot of trial and error of coming up with these new flavors and what their applications could be. So yeah, at the moment we've got 9 flavors on the retail range. We've got a really cool one. We've got a beetroot and apple sea salt, which is like electric pink. Looks great, like around the rim of a margarita or a cocktail.
Okay, I was going to say,
really
what are
cool.
they designed to do? Is this as an ingredient in dishes, or are you?
Yeah, it could be to finish a nice chocolate brownie or like a salmon gravlax or something like that. The beetroot one, or we've got a celery salt that's obviously going to Bloody Mary or quail's eggs or pork. It crisps up the rind really well. So there's lots of different flavours that have different pairings and applications, but there's some in there that are a bit more generic, like a smoked sea salt. The uses for that are infinite. I use it on simple things.
Do you sell in sort of commercial quantities for bars and restaurants and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we do. Yeah, so that's our kind of retail range, and then for the bars and restaurants and the food service market, we do a 1.5 kilo tub of the natural salt, and we also do a smaller tub of the smoked salt. I
was thinking for the bars as well. The fact, you mentioned
a few drinks
exactly.
there. And the celery salt, we're just about to do a milled version of that, because at the moment it's all like a flaky texture.
Yeah.
So for the celery salt, we're looking at milling it and selling that to bars, and they could use it in the cocktails, and same with the beetroot one. So yeah,
amazing. So bags of potential. How many years now then since you started? Only 2.
2, yeah, 2.
Awesome. Still
just over 2.
Okay.
By a couple
So it's
of
a
weeks.
pretty limited period of time. But anything you would have done differently with what you know now to when you started this?
Well, probably quite a lot of things. It's like a daily occurrence, that kind of thing. Looking back on something that I've done and wishing that I'd known about that before or known how to do it better. So I don't think anything really stands out. It all kind of merges into one kind of big, steep learning curve.
I think it's interesting that everybody's winging it fundamentally, isn't there? So you didn't know how to set up a
No,
company,
I mean, it literally,
so
it
you
started from scratch.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah, every facet of the business is like just winging it.
Yeah, no, it's
and learning
and everyone
on the
is.
job.
I think
the
younger you can learn that, the better. If everybody, at school just learn. I say this to my son who's 12 all the time. I say, there's this presumption when you're a kid that adults know what they're doing, but they don't. We're all just making it up as we go along. And if you can learn that young, then I think, and the Prince's Trust, I think, is great for creating opportunities.
Yeah, definitely.
Just go, look, we don't know what we're doing. We're just,
that's it.
Do you have a business mentor now still, or are you?
Yeah, we're still in touch with him. So it was just actually expired, that period, because you get a business mentor for 2 years.
Right.
We're actually really good friends, so I still rack his brains now and then. And I think I think one thing I find really important, and I tell anybody, mates and family, that whenever you're not sure, just don't be. I think a lot of people get worried about asking stupid questions at the fear of looking dim or naive or silly. But I was like that, but it doesn't matter.
That comes from school.
I ask
lots
of stupid questions. I'm completely used to it.
Yeah.
I don't mind looking like a wally.
Yeah.
But
And then when you start doing this, then and you're kind of, I don't know, on your hands and knees, chucking a bucket of over the side and picking up some water, to now where here we are, you're sat in an office and you've mentioned, profit and loss accounts and all that kind of stuff. I guess the roles changed very much. What do you enjoy in the day-to-day kind of life of what you now do? What's your favourite bit?
I love being hands-on with production and selling, because I'm that kind of person anyway that likes to be busy doing something with my hands, and I enjoy the selling because I love telling people about the product, because I'm really passionate about what we do, and I think it's excellent, and I'm really lucky to do what we do. So those are my 2 favourite things, actually creating it and telling people about it. It's amazing. Yeah. I'm not such a fan of the books and paperwork and all that jazz, all the admin.
You got a good accountant?
Yeah, fortunately.
Yeah, you need that's the other thing you learn, I think, in business, is that you really need very different personalities and different people. And aren't we lucky that you like your hands and you like being creative, but other people, you know, and I'm not one of those either, but they just love getting stuck into a spreadsheet and getting a calculator out.
Pouring over a spreadsheet,
yeah. And aren't we lucky? My solicitor, who I frustrate the hell out of because he sends me reams and reams of paperwork and stuff, and I'm just like, I shouldn't admit it, but I'm never going to read it. Just tell me the 5 things that I should know.
Yeah,
and, we're very lucky that everybody's different.
I think it's a good thing to surround yourself with people that are good at things that you're not good at.
Thank goodness for the human race and our differences. So if people want to buy the product, then they've heard this, they're inspired, and they're no longer going to, you know, this has become a very expensive process doing these podcasts for me, because now, you know, my poor wife, I've now got my organic box of fruit and veg being delivered every week, and now only, you know, want to eat the best chocolate, drink the best wine. English sparkling wine is now beating the French at champagne, and now I'm going to be moving on to salt. So apologies to anybody listening who is going to go, man, I'm going to go and buy some. I suppose, how much is a jar of salt, and where do people go to buy it? They buy it on your website as well as from local delis?
Yeah, so a jar of the natural salt retails for $3.99, and a jar.
It's not going to break the bank.
No,
and just splash out less than a pint.
Yeah, exactly. See it like that, and it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
You know? Or a jar of the flavoured salt will cost you $5.99.
Okay.
So you can buy them online through the website. You can buy them on Amazon.
What's the website address?
www.dorsetseasalt.co.uk. I had to think about that for a second.
To be fair, it's good. You're younger than some of the people. Some of the people I ask, they've got literally no idea what their website is. They never go onto their own website. So well done, congratulations. Particularly good channel on social to go to. Are you more prolific on?
Yeah, Instagram we're pretty active on. On Facebook a little bit, not so much on Twitter, but Instagram's a go-to for us. And then, farm shops and delis across the south. If you're ever in Selfridges, go in there and get some.
Amazing. That's good. That's a good gig to get. Great. Well, no, congratulations. It's brilliant. I love what you're doing for so many reasons. You're like the historical aspect of it. You're creating jobs. You're in a beautiful part of the world, and it's a great product. So congratulations, and thanks again for sparing the time to catch up.
Thank you very much.
I will put the website and the social and stuff in the show notes as well. So humansofhospitality.co.uk to anyone listening, and your links will all be on there.
Awesome.
Thanks
I appreciate
so much.
it. Thank you very much for coming over.
Cheers. So there you have it. You have reached the end of another episode of the Humans of Hospitality podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please go and visit our website, humansofhospitality.co.uk, for the show notes and extra episodes and information. And whilst you're there, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and to receive free materials all about the humans behind our incredible industry. Lastly, if you could subscribe, rate and review this podcast, you will be massively helping me out, and it would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much. We'll be launching another podcast in just 7 days' time. Cheers.